Today I have an incredibly small bag of coffee, yet an incredibly important bag of coffee. This coffee was used by Isaiah from Archetype Coffee to place first place in the US Barista competition in 2023. Later, he used this coffee in the same year to place fourth in the world. I had the opportunity to purchase this bag from Archetype Coffee, as well as experience what it was like to test the coffee brewed directly from Isaiah in a special experience where we got to try all of his competition drinks. So I want to go over what I thought about this coffee and ultimately what I learned from my experience of watching him show us his competition of how he brewed it, yet also how I managed to brew this coffee that is quite expensive at home without messing it up. So first off, I want to start by explaining how I brew it. So this is a Colombian coffee, and when I purchased this bag of coffee, I got 4 ounces of this, and I got 4 ounces of the same coffee that was processed a different way. So Isaiah worked with a couple different people to process this a specific way to compete with in competition. So this coffee is the exact same as another one. It just has a different process in it. I'll try to link some videos to explain more of this as well as his competition and performance so you can see directly what I experienced. But the easiest way for me to do this was I had 4 ounces of this and I had 8 ounces of the other coffee that's the same coffee processed differently. So that totals 12 ounces of coffee. It cost $100. So I brewed the 8 ounces first in order to dial in the grind setting because I assumed it was going to be pretty similar to what it would be using the coffee processed a little bit different way. So I was correct on my assumption of that. So what I did was I took my Turin DF83 grinder. The reason I chose that one was because it was a single dosing grinder and I wanted to be able to get the most out of this 4 ounces of coffee possible. And I did something that I have been waiting for a long time, and that is I brewed it with my new Flair 58 Plus. I sold my Flair 58 a while back ago, regretted it because I bought Isaiah's competition coffee from a few years back, and I ruined every single shot with my dual boiler machine at home because I couldn't feel the feedback. So I rebought this machine hoping he would release some nicer, expensive coffee down the road again, and I was right, and I had this machine and I was ready to go. So I had the Flair 58 with me, and I brewed it with this thing called the press sensor and an Acaia scale. This allowed me to give statistical charts so I could redo the charts and redo the coffee day by day. I'd have the grind settings written down on that, and I'd have the exact pressure that I wanted to do. So I did 18 grams of coffee to 36 grams out, so 1-to-2 ratio, and I did it in 25 to 30 seconds. And the unique thing about this is I brewed it with the Flair and the Acaia and the press sensor. I have all of this stuff in the link in the description below. And then I used a Barista Hustle tamper because that is what I had and that's my favorite tamper. And then I used a WT tool by Portakeeper, and I brewed it into a Husky cup that I have here. And I did this one unique thing that Isaiah did. And in his competition, he brewed it over this. Something similar to this, at least. Mine looks a little different because this is what I had laying around. I picked up these metal whiskey balls that have some special gel in it. So basically, you brew directly over this spear, and it goes straight into your cup, and it doesn't dilute it, but it chills it, keeping in and locking in more flavors of the coffee. So I simply just put this over my cup like this, and I actually have the coffee right here, and it still tastes absolutely incredible. But I brewed it directly over that, so it chills the coffee without actually diluting it as you would over ice. So you're not setting the ball in your coffee, you're brewing directly over it, which is why I had the strainer here. It sits perfectly on my Husky cup. I had the strainer before and then purchased 2 of these as well, put them in my freezer, and then I was good to go. So one of the things that I found the most interesting about this is the ability to taste this coffee the way that I brewed it at home, but then again, to also go and taste it the way that Isaiah brewed it, which was with some more expensive equipment and obviously more experience. But the unique thing I found about it is the way that I brewed it at home was incredibly close. So that kind of showed me a lot of different things. That showed me that the Flair and the DF83 that I had at home were more than capable of brewing an incredible shot of espresso at home. And as well as years of utilizing special tools like Weiss distribution technique and using good water, you can make great coffee at home, and you can actually get a lot out of spending a lot of money on a bag of coffee. And that's kind of what I realized through this whole process. So fast forwarding a few weeks after I brewed my bag of coffee that I got from Isaiah that got fourth place in the world, I got to experience going to Archetype Coffee, which is luckily in my home city, so I didn't have to travel far, and experiencing his routine. So he brewed his shot of espresso, he brewed a milk drink, and he brewed his special drink of coffee. And I think one of the most unique things about it is one, his milk, the way he steamed milk was substantially different than I've ever experienced before. He did this thing where basically he removed some of the water out of it so it was a more denser cup of milk. So an example of the way to do this is take a gallon of milk, freeze it, flip it upside down, and what's going to happen is the fats and the proteins and all the sugars and all the good stuff of milk will melt first, and you'll have this really really sweet thing of milk that you could steam, and then you'll have half a gallon of milk frozen with water. I'm experimenting more with this at home. I tried it once and it came out all right, but I think it can be a lot better the way that I did it. But basically, that moment of drinking milk was substantially different than anything else I've experienced, and it basically ruined every single milk drink that I've ever had from there. Also, the crazy amount of difference between brewing a cup of coffee with this spear versus without it is absolutely insane. I didn't know how much coffee could change from just that little detail in there. It changes it completely. I encourage you to try it at home. Buy one of these on Amazon. Link in the description below. This is not a sales thing, but just wanted to share my experience because I've had the privilege of tasting a lot of expensive coffee that I've purchased from Geishas and Eugenoides and this one that Isaiah recently did, this Peak Bourbon. And it's been a very, very unique experience, but it blows my mind on how much it shifts from using that spear versus not using that spear. One of the things I also noticed is some of the tools that Isaiah used to compete with. So outside of the equipment of the espresso machine and the grinder, one of the things he used was the Bose. I'm going to link it. This is not an affiliate link or anything, but it's an automatic tamper that simply just you twist and turn for consistency on it. So it's kind of like a puck press, but a lot smaller and more portable. It's about $300 or $400. And the next thing that he used, which I was really jealous of, was the unreleased, or at least at the time of me filming this and at the time of experiencing this, was the Barista Hustle distribution tool. I can't remember the exact name of it, but you basically lock it onto a portafilter and you spin a thing so it's very, very consistently repeatable distribution of your coffee grounds. So that was $200 plus the tamper, which was another $300. So that's like $500 in two accessories that he used in this. But I also found that those accessories, you could still do a really, really good shot at home with simply using any needle tool and any kind of tamper that you have, as long as you do consistent things. So here's what my takeaway for this is. One of my biggest fears was of buying expensive coffee is just brewing it poorly, not having the experience, not having the knowledge, that I know that like I feel like I know more than the average person when it comes to coffee, just from the gear that I've reviewed and the experience that I have from here. But I've never worked as a barista, and I've never competed, and I never plan on working as a barista or competing for that matter. And the amount, like, more that you can learn from somebody who really knows the craft was absolutely insane. One of the things that really stuck out to me the most out of anything is the passion and the desire that Isaiah has for the farmers who produce the coffee. Without the production of coffee, we don't get the quality of coffee that we have here. We don't get to really, really get the most out of things like our flair or our grinders and stuff like that. The equipment that we have really doesn't matter too much if we don't have good coffee to begin with. We can have absolutely terrible coffee, terribly roasted and terribly done, and we can have the nicest gear and we're going to have not a great experience. So it's all of these coffees that we drink and not knowing the name behind the people who produce it kind of made me realize how much we've missed out on learning and understanding in coffee. What I learned and my takeaway from this whole experience is to spend some more time researching farms and understanding the people behind the bean that I drink on a normal basis. I purchased 5-pound bags at a time from Archetype, and typically I just know the origin of where it's from, and that's about it, and I don't go far beyond that, even though I'm drinking 5 pounds that some family somewhere overseas spent a lot of time and effort in producing, and so much to the point that Isaiah and Jason from Archetype the Roaster chose them to sell and compete with and brew at their shop because they find value in it. So it shows that it goes so much beyond what we can experience, like what we even know from the country, from the family, the producer, all the stuff that goes into it, then taking it to the roaster and the amount of work that they do in preparing it, and the rest of the staff at the coffee shop of tasting and there's just so much that goes in a coffee that is often overlooked, and this is one of those experiences that helps you do this. So with this, I encourage you ultimately that brewing expensive bags of coffee are not too scary, especially when you have a flair. You can get a lot of it out of it. If you're doing pour over, it's even easier in my opinion to get a good drinkable shot. But ultimately, when you have the control that you have with the flair, you can go a long way with your coffee. In my description, you will find a couple links for affiliate links. I'll make a slight commission at no extra charge to you. Ultimately, this is what I want you to do, is I want you to go ahead and I want you to purchase a bag of this Pink Bourbon by Columbia. This is not the competition one. This one was the one that was processed not for competition, but still an incredible coffee. Support Archetype and the name that they've made for coffee specifically in the US, and support them, and ultimately don't be afraid of buying expensive bags of coffee, because I found at home you can still brew a great cup, especially if you have something like the flair and you've had some experience dialing in. Give it a shot, buy a bag, and I think it's something that you're going to be incredibly happy with. And lastly, try one of these. I'm going to go a little bit more into tasting the differences between those shots. I'm going to brew one without this and one with it, but ultimately buy one of these, give it a shot. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And lastly, if you like this video, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. It helps me continue to do something that I love to do, which is share my experience with coffee and reviews and all these different things for it. So thank you so much for your support, and thank you so much for watching this video.